Welcome to Run with Purpose. This is episode number 101. Do I say 101? 101? I don't know. We'll figure it out. We're over 100 now. But for those of you that are new to the show, my name is Flores, and I'm so very glad that you found this podcast. Would love if you would subscribe. And as always, you can reach out to me on all the socials at flores.run. Hope everyone is doing fantastic. Back on this side of 100 episodes. Crazy. Hit 100 a little while ago, took a little break, but here we are. Heard the new intro song. Obviously, new little milestone. Got another intro song. I apologize for those that are watching the video of this. I'm going to be looking down a little bit. All my notes right here. Wanted to try a new setup with the camera. So if you're watching this, thank you so much. If you're not watching it, check me out on Instagram. They're all going to be all there as well. Seeing the full episodes via video, if that's what you want to do. They're also going to be on YouTube, but you can check all that on the website, www.flores.run. Enough of that stuff. Took some time away just to kind of relax, regroup. It's just been a lot of craziness happening with work, with races and some of the running stuff, and then also some personal things as well, which I'll get into a little bit with this episode. But glad to start off 2023 right. Technically still recording this in 2022, but this is kind of wanting to get the year started right with the podcast and really think about what these next 100 episodes could be. You know, the first 100 were just crazy, like seeing the growth just in myself and kind of my ability to talk with people, and then the stories that I was able to uncover and have with people, and like the amount of the people that I've met across the country doing amazing things and having just amazing stories to tell and share with people. I've just been so thankful and blessed to have the opportunity to be able to kind of be a part of that journey as well. So I've got a lot of really cool things planned for this year, a lot of ideas that have been going through my head in this time to try to figure out, hey, what do we want the podcast to really focus on, some topics, some ideas that really, I don't know, just came to me. And then I have some guests too that have already been scheduled, which I'm excited to record with. And but if you know anyone that would be like, hey, they'd be a super cool guest, they have a really cool story, send them my way. Flores.run, you guys know it. I've said it 3 times, I think, already today, and I'll probably say it once or twice more before the end of the episode. But in the meantime, we're going to kind of get into these topics here. Like I said, got some really cool interviews coming up in the next month or two. So I'll be excited to share those with you as well. But at this time of the year, you know, we think about the beginning or end of a year. We usually take time to really reflect on the year past and really kind of gauge what the next year could be. You know, we reflect back. We have this like age-old what's the word I'm looking for? It's like age-old tale or phrasing of how fast time flies. You know, it feels like literally I was just having this conversation on this podcast with all of you, and it's been a year since we've kind of talked about what the next year could hold, and kind of reflecting on the previous year. And, you know, we've heard that time flies when we're having fun, but as I get older, it seems like it just goes faster and faster every year. Just like in general, you know, being here in Minnesota with the kids, like seeing the twins now over a year old, it's just like, where has this year gone? You know, it seems like they were just babies crying and now they're walking around and crying. Yes, still crying. All 4 of them are actually crying. And then there's a 5th one coming on the way. Like, it's just absolutely crazy how fast things seem to just move. Where, you know, each year as I get older, it seems it moves faster and faster. But sometimes there's these specific things that can happen in your year that might make that hit a little harder. Maybe something comes up. There's those things that come up that make you realize how fast time really does fly by when you reflect and look back on it. And I apologize in advance if I get emotional on this one. This is definitely a personal piece to this story, but I definitely had one of those moments in 2022. And on to October 10th of this year, while we were just sitting on the couch watching TV as a family, as we usually do in the evening, Bella had a seizure. She had never had a seizure before, and so obviously we're super concerned. But if we go back a few more months, she had a parathyroidectomy, where they were removing some of her parathyroid glands because they believed one of them to have a tumor on it, one or two of them have a tumor on it, which was producing too much calcium basically in her body. Too much calcium is not good for your body for a number of reasons. So it's like, hey, we need to figure out what it was. We figured out it was this. We saw them swollen based off of some imaging they did. They said, we're going to go and remove it. So that's what they did. And after the surgery, we had to closely monitor her calcium levels to make sure that they didn't dip too low. Basically, these things were overproducing. Needed to make sure that her body would readjust and not assume these things were going to continue to happen since they were no longer in her body. And after doing a ton of different follow-ups and changing medication dosages, going down, going up, Bella getting poked like a gazillion times in this process, the doctors felt like we kind of had stabled out with her calcium, and that we were in the clear as long as we didn't see any clinical signs of it. And seizures were a clinical sign. So obviously we were in kind of a panic, like I said, with her having a seizure. We took care of her until she came out of it, and then rushed her to the pet hospital. Again, it was one of those where if she has these clinical signs, like, you don't want calcium to drop too low because then we can get into some real issues. So it's like, if these things happen, you need to get her looked at right away. And this whole time we're like, we're just hoping it's the calcium. Like, hey, you guys thought the calcium was leveled out. Maybe it's not. Let's just check that out and kind of go there. And they did all the checks, and they said, we don't really know what's going on. The calcium level is exactly where we'd expect it to be. It was a little low, but not low enough that they would worry. And they said, everything else looks fine. We were there for a few hours, and they kind of said, hey, we don't see anything else. So, just take her home. We can set up an appointment in a day or two and just do another checkup to make sure everything's fine. So back at home, we were asleep in bed, and she had another seizure in the middle of the night. At this point, it was, we knew kind of what to expect at that point. So we got her ready, got up back to the pet hospital. And, when we called, they knew we were coming, and it was just, they were going to admit her for the evening, which is obviously already scary enough. We don't like doing that. And for those of you that may be new to the show, I probably should preface all of this. Bella, it was our Havanese dog that we had, giving some foreshadowing. She was basically our daughter, if you think about that, with Kayla and I. So they kept her overnight. The next day, they met with the neurology department, had an MRI, and found that she had a hemorrhage in her brain. They didn't know what had caused it. Basically just a bleed in the brain. They're like, there could be a tumor behind it. They didn't see a tumor, but like, it could be hidden based off of where the staining is with the bleeding. And they didn't think it was cancer, but they couldn't tell because of the imaging and kind of where they could get, she was a 10-pound dog. So, not a lot of room there. So they're trying to, do it very, very small measurements. And they didn't think it was that, but they couldn't be sure what it was. And this is where things really started to get tough for us, but really for Bella. Multiple medications and dosage changes throughout the week. And then really at least a once a day visit to the hospital, whether it was facial twitch seizures, full off seizures, medication making her lethargic, her yelping. We don't know if it's pain or what's going on there. And it really just kind of overtook her. She just wasn't, she just wasn't the same happy puppy that she had been. I wrote these notes and I was all right. Yeah. And then on October 15th, our wedding anniversary, we went back because things just weren't looking right. She was like just super lethargic, didn't want to like do anything. She couldn't walk. She hadn't been going to the bathroom. And we talked to the doc and she's like, these signs just don't look good. Something's progressing. And that's where she's like, she thinks it's a tumor underneath it that we can't see that's pressing on some stuff and it's causing issues. Basically what's happening is the medications are stopping the seizures, but it's not stopping everything else that it's pressing against. So we're not seeing the signs of it because the medication is just literally blocking it. So she wasn't having seizures, but we're seeing all the other issues. And we had gotten back to the car after the appointment, super upset, just trying to, gather our thoughts and figure out everything that's going on. And Kayla had said, hey, can you go back in and talk to the doctor to understand what odds are? Like, what are we really looking at? We couldn't bring ourselves to kind of ask it in the room. So it was one of those where she said if I could go back in and kind of talk to the doctor. So that's what I did. I went back and luckily I called the doctor as I walked in and we talked a little bit. And basically from the conversation, her last words were just spend time and love on her. And, so that's what we did. We took her home and kind of just spent the time that we needed to spend with her. Sorry. Nothing like coming back into podcasts on something like this, right? Haven't even gotten to the topic piece. This is just the pre-story. On October 16th, Bella earned her wings and no longer in pain or dealing with any of, no more doctors, no more surgeries. And yeah, and that was kind of that. And sorry for the long, emotionally drawn out story there, but really that this whole topic came up because of this situation of how time flies, how you don't realize how fast time can go by in the moments that you're in. And, we can sometimes get hyper focused on the future that we sometimes forget to enjoy the present and kind of relish in what we have until we no longer have it. This is really the first loss that I've had in my life. Like I haven't lost a knock on wood. Where's my wood piece? Any grandparents that I was close to, any close family members. So this was the first time that I've really felt like that. We've had previous family dogs and stuff, but nothing to like this. Like this is my baby girl, right? And her 13th birthday was in August. And and like I said, we sometimes forget to enjoy the time because we think we're just going to kind of continuously have it. And really the next few days, weeks, and honestly, really even till now, obviously, there's still just little things that make me break down. Talking about it, again, like I said, I wrote these notes down and I was okay during the notes. Obviously, talking makes it a little different, but when there's these little things that happen that we don't realize will make so much of an impact on us. So something as simple as waking up in the morning and taking her for a walk, or having to get her food ready, or her coming and barking at me that I'm not letting her upstairs to be with Kayla, or whatever the case might be. I'm sorry for all these sniffles, man. These things are gonna be loud in the mic. And I know Kayla has those as well as we kind of deal with the grief and everything that goes on to it. But if we think about time flying by, it's, when things are going well, we tend to just ride the wave. We get to a point where we're just kind of riding along on the wave. We're sitting going, hey, this is great. We're hanging out here. So initially we're really like so excited into it, on top of the wave, on top of the world with everything. But then it gets to a point where even though we're enjoying it, we're really just sitting at the top of the wave and we're kind of just riding on it almost making it think like that's the new normal. We talked about this back in, 2020 with everything with COVID, of this idea of like new normal and what that really means, and how we can just kind of like ride on this wave, and then eventually things will crash. Like that's how waves work, right? They'll come up, we can ride the wave, and the wave will crash. Sometimes the crash can be something small, but sometimes it can be large. And we have to then understand and deal with it, and it might be a semi bit of a grim look at it, but really the only thing that we're guaranteed in life is death. That's really it. And it doesn't make it any easier when it comes, even though we know that. Even though we know there is an end to our time on this earth, it still doesn't make it easier to deal with. We can get so involved in moments that maybe we can take it for granted. What wouldn't I do just to have one more snuggle with Bella on the couch, hold her close and just thank her for kind of everything that she's helped me get through. And folks listening, you have family pets and stuff like that. It's this idea of like kind of your burdens and everything here is just someone that is just unconditional love. There's just something, it's hard to explain. And right now we're working through a book of her life. So like grabbing photos and stuff like that of all the journeys that we've been on. Cause obviously she's been on a crazy amount of trips with us, especially with my running journey and everything. And we like to make the joke that Bella has pooped in more states than people actually visit in their lifetime. I didn't actually do the number of them, but as I look at my map over there, it's like almost all of the East Coast, basically over to Utah. Like she's pooped in all of those states. So if you haven't been in that many states, she's pooped in more states than you've been in. But those photos bring up all of the great memories about the times of old, but then it also brings a little bit of sadness, right? That she won't be on the next journey, whatever that journey might be. But while we're in those moments, it seemed like they would last forever. That this would be the way things be. Again, understanding there's an end, knowing that there would be an expiration date. It felt as though they were going to last forever. But as we look back, we wonder where that time went. We'll pull up photos and we're like, holy crap, that was 6 years ago. Like I can remember it vividly, what we were doing on that day and Bella, and when we took this picture and what was happening, everything around it. And holy crap, that was 6 years ago. And, not getting into like a conversation of like relativity of time, because I'm not that smart for a conversation like that. But I do know that time is limited and we waste a lot of it. And I don't know if that's the reason why it seems as though as we get older, that time seems to fly by even more. When we're young, we don't have as many, I would call them worries or cares, but we're just living life. And everything kind of seems like this freedom. But as we get older, we lose a little bit of that just inherently. We have jobs, we have to do things, and we have to pay bills, and we have to do tasks that we don't want to do. And sometimes that feels as though it's stealing some of the time that we had. So the time that we get to spend on the things we enjoy is actually reduced. But I do know it's limited. And the paradox of all of it is that when we don't waste it, it seems there's a lot less of it. And how can we handle that? And I don't have an answer of that. It's more of just like a thought to have and to ponder for yourself is how do we make the most of the time that we have, soaking up all of the moments, knowing that with every year, time moves faster, seems to move faster, and that we just don't have the same amount of time that we had previously. We got a Christmas card from someone that we send a card to every year, and she made a comment, everyone's talking about Bella and stuff like that, and showing their sympathy and that sort of thing. And she had made this comment of, I'm in my mid 80s. And if you don't get a card from me next year, it's because I'm with Bella. You're like, man, that's heavy. But you think about it, like, even at 35, like I'm not worried about that or thinking too much about that. But like 35 years is like, I'm technically less than half of my expected life, again, knock on wood. And I can't imagine all of the things that I'll be able to do in that extra 35 years, 40, 50 years. 50 years might be a stretch. Sorry, Kayla, if you listen. It's just crazy how that time will go. You talk to people that are older, our grandparents, they talk about the times, like they remember them like they were yesterday, but they were 40, 50, 60 years ago. And you're like, how does time do that? How do we soak up those memories and those moments? Because we know they're going to go quickly. One day we'll be at the end of our road and it'll seem like a flash. And it's not something we can avoid, but I wonder if we can build the memories that can outlive us by sharing them with friends and family. I think it goes back to the experience conversation we've had a few times on the podcast, is this idea of providing experiences and being greater than yourself, making a difference outside of yourself, because it shouldn't be about you. It should be about the impact you're making on the world and the things you're doing that your friends and family will be able to remember you by, or the next generation will be able to remember you by, or something that you made an impact much larger than yourself. We can do something, we can create something, we can be something that is larger than just us. I want to be more than just Jonathan. I want to be like, hey, here's what Jonathan had done. And not that I need my name tied to anything, but knowing that the things that I had set in motion are continued by other people. And I think that's how we kind of live outside of ourselves. And that's a little different than the time flies idea. But if we really think about it, time flies, but we can still make a larger difference and a longer lasting impression, even when we're not here. And when we think about this idea of time and how fast it moves, it is interesting. It's like you talk to a kid and they can tell you things that happened last week that made it seem like it was an eternity to go for them. But then as we get those weeks upon weeks upon weeks and the years, how our mind changes and how we see time. Again, not that I'm looking at the end, but we do have a shift in our minds where we start thinking more about the time ahead than the time that we've had previously. And that's where we lose those memories, we lose those moments. And I don't think we lose them forever, but they can seem as a far off distance thing. And again, sometimes can bring happiness, sometimes can bring sadness. This time of year with the holidays and New Year, people are dealing with things. And this time might remind them of things that aren't so happy. But with that, time does pass, and we can learn to appreciate time, whether it's happy or sad, and understand that the moments and the memories have made us kind of who we are today. And this is obviously, I'm mixing a lot of concepts and ideas here, but this whole idea that time moves by so quickly. And for the old saying, just stop and smell the roses. Just make sure you're in the moment. Make sure you're present where you're at right now, because who knows when you try to hold on to that present piece, when you want to wish you held on to it a little longer. We don't get that time back. So how do we make sure we make the most of every moment? Because time is going to move. Like I said, as I get older, not old, as I get older, it seems to move by faster and faster. sorry for the heavier topic, to start back. It was just an idea that I had. And I think this whole process, and I think part of the reason for the break, we had the break initially, and then all this stuff happened with Bella, and I just couldn't find myself to kind of bring up and talk about these things. I think this whole process has really helped in my grief and my handling and understanding my feelings about it all, because I think it's so important to kind of talking about sitting in these moments and understanding why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling and what I'm feeling, and how to portray that to other people that might be going through something similar. And maybe if this can help support you in any way, I hope it did. I hope there was something you got out of this. But yeah, it's a crazy thing, time and how it all works. But yeah, thanks for coming back to the podcast. If you're returning listener after the break, I'm excited to see what these next 100 episodes can hold, the stories, topics that we share, all these things that hopefully bring you a new perspective about something, maybe make you learn something a little different. In this moment, I hope you had a great holiday season. Hope you had a happy New Year. This will come out shortly after New Year's. I think it'll be that first week. I'm losing track of the dates. With that though, yeah, it'll come out that Tuesday, the 3rd, 4th. You guys know what day it is because you're listening to it hopefully on this day, but I'm actually doing the Dopey Marathon with my friends Josh and Chad. So yeah, I'll be in Orlando all week. So if you happen to be listening to this in the Orlando area, hit me up. If you're running the race, even better, hit me up. But yeah, that's all I got today. But remember, you can reach out to me everywhere on social media at flores.run, subscribe, leave a review for the podcast. Super helpful. Hangry gear always. We are hangry.com. This dope hat. Thanks so much for joining me today. Remember to keep running with purpose, one step at a time. See you next week.